He thought it was just a Tinder date. One drink later, she was holding a knife and smiling. Before we continue, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for supporting our channel. Just choosing to watch our video means a lot to us. Before we go any further, tell us where are you watching from. Drop your city or country below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this is your first time here. Watch to the end. The last part will shock you. The message appeared on Ethan Cole's phone at exactly 9:47 p.m. Still on for tonight? Ethan stared at the screen longer than he meant to. The apartment around him was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that pressed against your thoughts and made loneliness feel louder than any noise. He had spent the last year buried in work, convincing himself he preferred being alone. But the truth was simpler. He was tired of coming home to empty rooms. He typed back quickly, "Yeah. Leaving now." He didn't know it yet, but that single reply would pull him into a nightmare that investigators would later describe as, quote, one of the most disturbing dating app predator cases they'd ever seen. Ethan was 32 years old, a graphic designer who worked remotely for a small marketing firm. He lived alone in Harbor City, a coastal place known for its nightlife, tourism, and constant flow of new faces. People came and went so often that no one really paid attention to who stayed. That anonymity made Harbor City feel exciting. It also made it dangerous. Ethan hadn't planned on dating that night. He'd downloaded Tinder months earlier, scrolled through profiles half-heartedly, and matched with Lena almost by accident. She messaged first. Her humor was subtle, dry, intelligent. She didn't flood him with emojis or cliches. She asked thoughtful questions. She remembered details. And most importantly, she didn't push. At least, not at first. They talked for nearly a week before agreeing to meet. Ethan suggested a wine bar near his apartment. Public, familiar, safe. He told himself he was being responsible. He had no idea that responsibility wouldn't matter. Lena arrived 10 minutes late. Ethan noticed her immediately, not because she was stunning, but because she moved through the bar with unsettling calm. No hesitation, no searching eyes. She scanned the room once, spotted him, and walked straight over. "Ethan?" she asked, smiling. Her voice was soft, controlled. "Yeah," he said, standing. "Lena?" She nodded and sat down, crossing her legs neatly. Up close, she looked normal. Approachable. Mid-20s. Nothing about her screamed danger. That's what bothered him later. The conversation flowed easily. Lena laughed at the right moments but rarely talked about herself unless prompted, and even then, her answers were vague. She redirected questions back to him with precision. Where he worked, who he lived with, how often he went out. It felt flattering at first, like she was genuinely interested. Only later would Ethan realize she was mapping him. After the second drink, Ethan felt relaxed enough to ignore the quiet alarm ringing somewhere in his mind. Lena leaned closer, lowering her voice. "This place is loud," she said. "Do you want to go somewhere quieter?" The words were casual, almost innocent. Ethan hesitated. His apartment was nearby. Too nearby. But he didn't want to seem paranoid or rude. And nothing about Lena felt wrong enough to justify saying no. "Sure," he said. "I live a few blocks away." Lena smiled. Not wide, not excited, satisfied. Ethan's apartment was small but clean, minimalist. The kind of place that reflected someone who didn't spend much time there. Lena stepped inside and immediately began looking around. Not snooping, just observing. She touched the edge of a bookshelf, picked up a framed photo of Ethan and his sister. "You're close," she said. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "We talk all the time." "Good," Lena said softly. "People should be close." Something in her tone made Ethan uncomfortable, but he couldn't pinpoint why. He offered her water. She accepted. When he turned back toward the living room, the atmosphere had changed. The apartment felt still, too still. Lena was no longer sitting on the couch. She was standing, and in her hand was a knife. Ethan froze. The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered against the floor. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice thin, unfamiliar even to himself. Lena tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. "You weren't supposed to notice yet," she said calmly. His heart slammed against his ribs. His thoughts scrambled for logic, for a joke, a misunderstanding, anything. "Is this a prank?" he asked weakly. Lena smiled. "I don't joke about this." What Ethan didn't know was that Lena had done this before. Not once, not twice. 3 men across 3 different cities had vanished over the past 2 years. All were last seen after meeting a woman through a dating app. Different names, different locations, no obvious connection. Except Lena. She had learned early how to blend in, how to mirror interest, how to extract information without raising suspicion. She studied her targets carefully. Lonely men, recently single, socially isolated. She never rushed. She never forced. She let them invite her in. Ethan backed toward the kitchen counter, eyes locked on the knife. His mind raced through options. The door. The balcony. The hallway. None felt reachable. "Lena," he said carefully. "You don't have to do this." Her expression didn't change. "I already did," she replied. That was when survival instinct finally took over. Ethan grabbed the nearest thing, a glass, and hurled it at her face. Water splashed. Lena cursed, more annoyed than angry. He ran. The knife slashed through his arm as he reached for the door, pain exploding like fire. He screamed, yanked the handle, and stumbled into the hallway. Neighbors opened doors. Someone shouted. Someone else called 911. Ethan collapsed against the wall, bleeding, gasping for air. Lena didn't chase him. She simply turned, wiped the blade clean, and walked back inside. By the time police arrived, she was gone. At the hospital, Ethan drifted in and out of consciousness as detectives listened to his story. When they showed him photos of missing men, his stomach dropped. "She's the same," he whispered. "That's her." For the first time, investigators had something they'd never had before. A survivor. Digital forensic teams moved fast. App data. Location pings. Traffic cameras. Partial fingerprints recovered from Ethan's apartment. Days later, Lena was arrested in another city, preparing for yet another date. She didn't resist. She never did. During interrogation, Lena showed no remorse. "They chose me," she said flatly. "They swiped right." Psychologists later described her as predatory, emotionally detached, and methodical. She didn't see her victims as people, only as opportunities. Ethan spent months recovering. Physically. Emotionally. The guilt haunted him, the knowledge that others hadn't escaped. Today, Ethan tells his story publicly, not for sympathy, for warning, because the most terrifying thing about predators like Lena isn't their violence. It's their normalcy, and how easily trust becomes a weapon. Dating apps promise connection, but sometimes they deliver danger. And sometimes, the person smiling across the table isn't looking for love. They're looking for their next victim.